Well, welcome to the 700 Club. Congress recently passed a law to stop U.S. taxpayer dollars from going to the Palestinian Authority if they keep giving money to convicted terrorists and their families. Well, it looks like it hasn't stopped the Palestinians from giving up the practice known as pay to slay.
The law is called the Taylor Force Act, named after a United States citizen who was murdered by Palestinian terrorists in Israel. Chris Mitchell brings us the story on the Palestinian response to this warning from America.
When the Taylor Force Act became law, Congress expected the Palestinian Authority to get the message. CBN News spoke by phone with Congressman Doug Lamborn, who introduced the legislation to the House of Representatives.
It says a strong signal that we're not going to stand by when they take U.S. taxpayer dollars and turn around and give it to terrorists who have murdered innocent people.
Yet PA President Mahmoud Abbas ignored any signs, blatantly refusing to honor the new law, even though it could mean millions in lost aid.
في شغلة بدأ إنه الأمريكان بيقولوا لنا عليها إنه إحنا بنوقفها وهي رواتب الشهداء وأسر. طبعا نحن نرفض هذا رفضا قاطعا ولا لا نقبل بأي حال من الأحوال إنه حد يمس أسر الأسرى والجرحى والشهداء. هدول أولادنا وهدول أهلنا وهدول بنتشرف فيهم بنضل ندفع لهم قبل الأحياء.
The Palestinians are taking a hard line and they are defying the U.S. We should stop every single penny that goes to them until they change their policy.
Rewarding terrorists and their families has been built into the fabric of Palestinian society as well as its budget for decades. According to the Meir Amit Intelligence Center, this year is no different. For 2018, the Palestinian Authority still allocated about $360 million, or 7% of its budget, for this practice. The PA has budgeted this amount of money for the past 6 years. In the past, the PA disguised the sources of those payments. Now the funds are openly included in the 2018 budget, a move some interpret as clear defiance. Itamar Marcus of the Palestinian Media Watch first reported on payments to terrorists by the PA in 2011.
The great tragedy of, I would say, the last 20 years is that the Palestinian Authority acted like a terror organization. They sent terrorists to kill Israelis. They rewarded them.
Lamborn hopes other nations will follow the U.S. lead.
We would strongly hope that other countries would follow our lead, just as we hope they follow our lead in other areas like moving the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem.
If the international community united says to the Palestinians, if you act like a terrorist, you're not going to get our money, you'll be treated like a terrorist, I think that could have a very good long-term effect on changing the way the Palestinian Authority behaves.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Well, it's time now for the Trump administration to act under the legislative authority of the Taylor Force Act. That act calls for the State Department to report, is the money still going to pay terrorists? And the Palestinian Authority isn't even making an attempt to disguise it. The horrible news is this practice has been going on for some time, all the way back into the Bush administration. It's not something new. They have been paying the families of these terrorists for some time. And it's time for us to stop our taxpayer dollars going to it. The fear in every administration has been, if we stop the funding, does that mean the collapse of the Palestinian Authority, and specifically the collapse of their police force? And what would then happen? What would happen in the West Bank? What would happen in the Gaza Strip? Would they be completely controlled by terrorist organizations? But at the same time, we can't pay for terrorism. That's a bottom line. We just can't do it. The international community can't do it. And I'm proud of the president. I'm proud of the Congress for passing the law, signing it into being. Now it's time to enforce it. Well, in other news, President Trump is bringing in a very famous attorney to join his team in dealing with the Russian investigation. John Jessup has that story from our CBN News Bureau in Washington. John?
That's right, Gordon. That famous attorney the president has hired is Rudy Giuliani, who served as a U.S. attorney before being elected New York City mayor. Giuliani will focus on wrapping up the president's involvement with special counsel Robert Mueller's Russia investigation. The timing coincides with news that Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein reportedly told the president last week that he is not a target of Mueller's investigation or the probe into his lawyer, Michael Cohen. Meanwhile, former FBI Director James Comey's memos of his meetings with Trump have been released. The president tweeted, "They clearly show there was no collusion with Russia or obstruction into the investigation." Well, you might be surprised to learn that Facebook has a team dedicated to churches and other faith groups, especially as critics question whether the social networking giant has been censoring certain content. I recently traveled to Nashville for this behind-the-scenes look at a never-before-seen partnership between Facebook and one of the city's largest churches, where the pastor is using social media to take the mission of evangelizing to the next level. Worship at Mount Zion Baptist Church is all hands on deck, with people passionate about their praise. At this particular service, however, you'll see something usually reserved for your mobile phone or computer screen.
Thank you.
The church teamed up with Facebook to launch its official Facebook group. The goal, connecting people already using the platform to build community. For Pastor Joseph Walker, whose online audience nearly matches his 30,000 member congregation, it's purely logical.
And often people see a church and don't know where to connect, and sometimes the churches are so big, they're like, do I really matter? Would I be just another number? And so what we want to do is focus on engagement.
Enter the social network with 2 billion worldwide users. It learned about Walker from other pastors.
We met in January, and I realized that there was a pretty natural alignment between the vision of Mount Zion being to connect and commit and change, and the mission of our company being to help people build community and bring the world closer together.
God is a great guy.
A pastor's wife with 18 years in ministry herself, Jones now leads Facebook's faith-based partnership outreach.
I've preached around the country and around the world, and what's interesting is I wasn't asked to join the company in spite of that. I was asked to join the company because of that, because we really want to understand communities of faith and make sure that the people that are working on this work understand them as well.
Part of that understanding means inspiring the next generation.
Computer sciences can be in fashion and music and sports. It's all over the place.
These 50 or so students traded their Saturday morning for a computer science lesson from one of the country's leading high-tech companies.
Perfect, you got it.
Many of these kids attend Mount Zion Baptist Church, but this event doesn't cover topics they traditionally learn in Sunday school. Instead, it's about introducing them to computer programming, and perhaps making a few digital disciples.
If I didn't get to know it through the church, I would have never known about it. I would have never even tried it, to be honest.
And it may have produced some future computer programmers.
I started working on my own camera filter, and I'm going to continue that when I go home.
Just like Facebook's recent criticism on Capitol Hill, ranging from privacy to charges of being a monopoly to censorship, Bishop Walker understands not everyone will agree with his approach. He says he's following the teaching of Jesus.
He called us to go into the whole world, rather. The command was go, right? And now Facebook has given us a platform. They've come alongside the faith community to say, listen, what you're doing matters.
Supporters believe it's about digital discipleship, a way to connect people beyond simply streaming videos to help them grow their faith and in community. It was a great worship service in Gordon. Bishop Walker's mission to use today's technology reminds me of what you call evangelism in the cloud.
That's right. We've been doing this. So we call it evangelism in the cloud, that you can use these various platforms. You can use search engines. You can use social media sites in order to evangelize. And I applaud what this church is doing. It's a wonderful thing. If the Russians can use that platform for evil, well then, boy, the church needs to go in there and use it for good. And congratulations to them. It's wonderful.